No, seriously, what are we looking at here? Because the more I go back through the Five Nights at Freddy's graphic novels, the more I feel we have been misunderstanding William Afton's end goal from the very beginning, and I don't think Springtrap was the plan. Springtrap was the accident, the failed version, the ugly, rotting, painful prototype of something Afton was trying to do on purpose. By the end of this video, you'll know the answer to what he was actually trying to become. In the games, Afton is mostly presented like a shadow. A purple guy, missing kids, spring lock suit, fire, somehow he's still alive. We understand him through the crime scenes, minigame, and aftermath. But that also means the game keeps his actual personality hidden behind mystery. The comics do the exact opposite. They put him right in front of us. They let him talk, let him lie, let him stand in a room, and pretend to just be another strange man. Honestly, by the way you see him in the comic, it just makes him way worse. That's the first huge clue. William Afton is not terrifying because he has no humanity left. He's terrifying because he understands humanity well enough to imitate it. He knows how normal people expect a normal person to act, and he uses it against them. Dave Miller is disturbing because he does not walk into the story like a supervillain. He's weak, weird, and almost forgettable, but that's the point. The most dangerous costume Afton ever wore was not Spring Bonnie. It was the appearance of being human. And once that idea clicks, the entire trilogy starts to become just different. The rabbit suit is not where the disguise begins. The disguise starts before he ever puts it on. William himself is already performing, acting, already building a mask before the mask even is there. Afton does not hide inside of Spring Bonnie because he's ashamed of what he is. He hides inside because it gives him permission to become what he already wanted to be. The suit is not the monster, it's the excuse to do what he does. Then, in the Twisted Ones graphic novel, this takes a direction that feels random at first, but gets more important the longer you read and think about it. Suddenly, this is not just a haunted robot story anymore. It becomes a story about perception, illusion, and control. The twisted animatronics are not simply scary because they look creepy. They're scary because they are designed to lie to the human brain. They make people see something that's not fully real, which is basically Afton's entire method turned into machinery. Henry builds animatronics that express love, grief, memory, and family. Afton builds animatronics that deceive. That contrast is huge because it explains why their creations feel completely different. Henry creates characters. William creates traps that pretend to be characters. And that's where the comic quietly reveals something massive. Afton is not obsessed with robotics just because machines are useful. He's obsessed with the idea of a body that can be modified, replaced, controlled, and made to perform anything. Now think about the sister location after reading all this. Voice mimicry, faceplates, hidden compartments, controlled movements, animatronics built to lure and capture. The fun times are not just advanced performers, they are bodies designed to deceive people more perfectly than any mascot suit ever could. The fourth closet novel is where everything finally starts to snap into place. This book is not only about murder anymore, it's about copies, identity, memory, possessions, stolen life, and the terrifying idea that a person can be rebuilt. Charles is a copy. Baby carries Elizabeth. Memories can be planted, moved, hidden, and confused. A person can look alive, sound alive, even feel alive to the people around them while still being manufactured by someone else. And sitting in the middle of all this is William Afton, watching these impossible things like he has finally found the cheat code to existence itself. He's not looking at miracles. He is looking at the systems he thinks he can control. This is exactly why Baby matters so much. To everyone else, Baby's a tragedy. She is Elizabeth trapped inside of something that should have never existed. But to Afton, Baby is proof. Proof that identity can be captured, redirected, preserved, and used. A daughter can become a machine. A voice can survive inside of metal. A soul can be trapped and still act like itself. To a normal person, that's horrifying. To Afton, it's progress. It means personhood is no longer untouchable. Then we see William in his lab, and he doesn't look powerful at all. He looks ruined, damaged, and dependent. He's surrounded by machines because he knows his own body is failing him. And that details the clue that changes everything on how you read this. In the games, Springtrap feels like a punishment, a corpse trapped inside the murder weapon. But in the comic, you can almost see Afton looking at that punishment like unfinished research. It was painful, unstable, disgusting, yes, but it almost worked. Because if flesh breaks, replace it. If the body rots, build around it. If the memory fades, preserve it somewhere else. If the soul can attach to metal, then death is not really the end. It's just a technical problem in his head. That's why comic book Afton is much worse than the game Afton. He does not treat the supernatural like a curse or punishment. He treats it like science, like a discovery, something he can refine if people suffer. Remnant is the center of that science. In the games, remnant can feel like one of those words everyone argues about forever. But in the comic, it becomes physical. It's heated, extracted, injected, tested, becomes horrifyingly practical. Afton's not only murdering people, he's measuring what murder leaves behind. His victims are not just victims to him anymore. They're fuel, evidence, ingredients, test subjects, and failed attempts at building something he actually wants. And it sounds insane, but that's exactly why the graphic novels are so disturbing. The game usually shows us the aftermath in the shadows. The comic shows us the process, and the process makes Afton feel less like a ghost story. Carlton's injection scene might be one of the most important moments in the entire trilogy because it shows us that remnant is not just energy. It carries something personal, something human. It carries memory, pain, awareness, identity, and pieces of the children. So suddenly the theory is much darker. Afton was not just asking, can I live forever? He was asking, can a human being be dismantled? Can the soul be separated from the body? Can the memory move like a machine part? And this is where I think people miss how deep the horror goes. Afton's not studying death because he fears it, like a normal sane person. He fears the loss of control. Death is the moment his body finally stops obeying him. That makes every experiment a rebellion against the body, against aging, against the weakness, grief, and consequences, against the idea that human beings have natural limits. Afton is not just trying to survive death, he's trying to prove that it's optional. And that's why his evil feels so personal. He's not destroying families only because he can. He's stealing the things families are built around. Love, recognition, the idea that a person is more than parts. A child is not the only thing killed in Afton's world. They are converted into something useful, something repeatable, something that can be studied again and again. And that's why the comics make the murders feel even colder than the games ever could. Because now the murders are not just random violence. They are the beginning of a research project, a horrible, secret experiment where Afton is trying to learn which parts of a human can remain after death and which parts can be forced into metal. This also explains why children matter so much in Five Nights at Freddy's. Children are memory, fear, imagination, attachment, and unfinished life. In this universe, those things seem to create an emotional charge strong enough to bind a soul to an object. So when Afton studies the children, he is not just studying victims. He's studying the strongest possible version of possession, the strongest possible spiritual reaction. He is looking at the innocents not as something to protect, but as the most powerful material. That makes him more than just a murderer. He becomes a parasite on human feeling. He feeds his machines with fear, confusion, memory, and grief. The worst part of all of this is that he seems to believe that makes him brilliant instead of monstrous. Once you see that, the whole trilogy feels less like an alternate story and more like a blueprint for understanding his obsession. The comics are not just showing what William did, they are showing the logic he used to justify it. Because the real question is not whether Afton can survive death. We already know he can. He always came back. He always comes back. The real question is, what survival costs everyone else? And the comic answers that in the most disturbing way. For William to keep existing, other people have to be reduced into parts in his experiment. Their souls become resources. He does not want immortality as a miracle. He wants immortality as something he can manufacture. This is the Fourth Closet comic book's most important lore. It doesn't just show Afton as evil, because everyone already knows that. It shows what kind of evil he is. Curious evil, patient evil, scientific evil, human evil. The human evil is even scarier because it has reasons. Not good reasons, but a lot of reasons. Afton is not just a mindless monster lashing out. He's calculated. He is building towards something. Every tragedy becomes another step towards his final form. So now we have to ask the question the comic seems to be pushing us towards. Can the soul survive without a body? Can a memory survive without freedom? Can a person be copied, edited, and controlled, forced to keep existing? Because if the answer is yes, then Afton's goal was never just living forever. That would be too simple. He was trying to redesign what a person even is, removing every weakness and keeping only the parts he could use. He wanted the soul without vulnerability, the body without the decay, family without love, the future without consequence. Basically, he wanted humanity with every inconvenient part stripped away, leaving behind something mechanical, obedient, and permanent. Our amalgamation proves that better than anything. It is not just melted animatronics smashed together for a final scare. It is the physical consequence of every soul Afton tried to use, every experiment he thought he could control. It is every stolen child, every broken machine, mistake, cruelty, fused into one impossible witness. Afton tried to turn people into parts, and the parts remembered exactly who had done this to them. The problem is that Springtrap is messy, rotten, painful, unstable, but it is immortality as a punishment. And if there is one thing Afton would hate, it's that being trapped inside of a version of success he can't control. So what would the finished version look like? Not a corpse in a rabbit suit, not something broken and screaming, something cleaner, chosen, a manufactured human body powered by stolen life, carrying a soul that refuses to die. That's the secret the comic reveals. Afton was not looking to try to escape death. He was trying to set his own rules to life. He wanted to be the person who decided what counted as a human. So the answer to all this, the conclusion, is that William Afton was not trying to become Springtrap. He was trying to become something beyond human. The comic reveals the experiment, the motive, and the failure. He wanted to master life itself, but the children proved he never could. Like, comment, subscribe.